anytime you breed, you're going to have things that don't go the way you want. It can be a difficult litter. I recently had a litter of puppies that I really had to nurse along for a long time, and they didn't make it. I think you have to really kind of grow a thick skin and not become so emotionally attached to the success of your puppies. I think when you are very emotional about the success of your puppies, it can really lead to some bad times. When you are breeding and you have your litter, remove all emotion from your decision making. Never keep a puppy because he was the first one to bark, or he's the cutest one, or he's got the cutest temperament. Pick the best puppy. Keep the best. If you have a dog in your kennel that you feel is mediocre, make space for a better dog.
Welcome to the Better Breeder Chronicles, brought to you by Easy Whelp Premium Whelping Boxes. Elevate your breeding program with Easy Whelp. In today's episode, we visit with Meghen Riese-Bassel of Renascent Welsh Springer Spaniels. Located near Atlanta, Georgia, Meghen is a second-generation breeder who has become a pillar of the Welsh Springer Spaniel breed. The highlights of her purebred career include breeding some of the finest, top-winning Welsh Springer Spaniels in breed history that have won at the biggest venues. She's bred American Spaniel Club winners and the first American-bred Welsh to win Best of Breed at Crufts and Sydney Royal. And at the national specialty level, she has retired the trophies for Best of Breed, Best Opposite, and Best of Winners. Those that know Meghen best call her a giant of the breed and a cornerstone who breeds superior dogs that have impacted the breed around the world, and that she prioritizes her breeding program above their show careers. Breeders describe her as having a keen eye towards breed preservation with a focus on breed type, structure, function, temperament, and health. She freely shares her bloodstock with other breeders, domestically and abroad, to ensure the welfare and continuation of the breed. Breeders recognize she has a genetic plan that stretches generations into the future. They also say she is ethical and trustworthy in all of her dealings with others, and she graciously mentors both novice and experienced breeders and judges alike, spending as much time on the education of others as she does on her own dogs. One breeder called her an admirable breeder and competitor, a compliment we should all be striving to earn. Join me now in welcoming the master of Renascent, Meghen Riese-Bassel. Meghen, welcome to the show. I'm really excited for you to share both the Statesman and Renascent story with us today. If you would, take us back to your beginning. How did you get started in purebred dogs?
I'm a second generation breeder, like many of us out there. I have been fortunate to have been surrounded by purebred dogs since birth. When I was 6 months old, my parents had their first litter, and the rest is history. I have grown up in one breed, the Welsh Springer Spaniel, although my parents dabbled a little bit with the Sussex Spaniel. Really became part of the community of Welsh Springer people. Back in the 80s, we had some really wonderful people who were willing to mentor me and include me at a very young age. And so I just have never stopped. I went in the ring for the first time when I was 4 years old. I was whelping puppies. I don't even know how old I was. And those are some of my earliest memories are just being with the dogs and breeding, whelping, and showing and getting bitten by the bug early.
In talking about mentors, no doubt your parents were your first mentors. Tell us a little bit more about them, their influence on you as a breeder today.
Both of my parents were dog lovers. They met in college, and my dad is from Wisconsin,
All
and
right.
he grew up with English Springer Spaniels and wanted a breed that he could continue to work in the field because as a young man, he would go out hunting, as a lot of kids in Wisconsin do in the afternoons. But at that time, rage syndrome was prevalent in the English Springer. When he and my mother met, they first got some Basenjis, out of their local newspaper. And my mom was actually able to finish one and get a group placement on one. However, the temperament on that breed was not ideal for their situation. And so they began the search for a new breed, and they found the Welsh Springer from the cover of the Gazette. It was a breed that was seen there. And so back then it was very small. There were very few breeders in the country, and it was a lot of work finding one. And so they found a breeder, and they continued and started their breeding program. And they were very blessed that their first 2 or 3 dogs were really exceptional examples of the breed. So it really started them out in a positive way. And they connected with a lot of Welsh Springer people in the US, and then they branched out to the UK. They have mentored me and included me from day one, and I am eternally grateful for that. I was never treated as a child. I was always treated as somebody whose ideas were important and were considered. And so I think that has really set me on the path to becoming a breeder.
So was the kennel name Statesman part of their breeding program from their very first litter?
Yes, it was their first litter was registered under the kennel name of Statesman. And the story goes that my parents have told me they were visiting another breeder in the US. And her husband said, "Oh, come up to the kennel and we'll go visit the elder statesman." And so they felt that that name really encompassed the breed, and it does.
So you mentioned having a couple of other mentors as you got started that were gracious with their time when you were still a very young breeder. Tell us about those people and the influence they had on you.
One of the first people I can think of is Adrienne Banker of Briarbank Welsh Springers in the US. She was the judge's education chairperson for quite a long time and has an extensive background in the breed. I've grown up with her. I think I met her when I was 2. Again, she was very generous with her time. She is very good at being able to describe what you're looking for in a dog. It's what made her so good at being judge's education chair for such a long time, because she was able to put into words the vision of the breed. And so I would have really good conversations with her about dogs that existed, dogs from the past that I had not seen. She was really such a wealth of information, and I can't be more appreciative to her for her time. Another person was Susan Haley of Gingerwood Welsh Springers. This time period was the 80s, and things were entirely different then than they are now as far as going to dog shows and traveling together. We back in those days, we would get in a big van, and there would be 4 of us in there, 3 breeders and me, and we would travel 12 hours to a dog show, and the whole way up, we would do nothing but look at dog magazines, have dog conversations, discuss pedigrees and what dogs had produced and health issues. And so it was almost like a group of people who were just infatuated, spending long periods of time together and sharing. And so Sue Haley was part of those trips. And so it would typically be my mother, Adrienne Banker, Sue Haley, and me sitting in the back, listening to all the older people speak and taking as much in as I could.
Incredible opportunity for a young and aspiring breeder to literally be sitting, in the presence of that many experienced breeders and getting insight into their thoughts, their thought processes and their experience, all coming probably from some different backgrounds.
Yeah, it was great because what I learned then is that not all good breeders always agree. I would listen to the sides, and this person might be willing to take a chance on a stud dog, whereas this person wouldn't. And it was nice because it was very amicable.
Right.
Everybody listened to everybody's opinions, and whether or not they agreed with it, they respected it.
And how valuable is that, that not everybody has the same risk tolerance or avoidance as you, because it takes all of us doing different things at different times for the benefit of the breed.
That is something I discuss a lot with breeders within the Welsh Springer. Some people, and I think this is probably across the board, all breeds, get upset when somebody does a breeding that they might not have done. I think it's those experiences of growing up and listening to the conversations and then watching the outcomes of the breedings that has given me the knowledge to go, you know what, let's just see what happens. Because sometimes those litters produce something really spectacular and you weren't expecting it.
Well, and isn't that the key, the observation? Kathy Russ talks about this all the time with her breeder circles. When you're working with partner breeders and a breeder decides to do something maybe that you wouldn't do, or you're not comfortable with, she says, how you need to approach that is, well, that might not be something that I would do, but I support you and we're all going to learn together. And those learnings, they might be positive, they might be negative, but the breeds need those actions being taken. And then hopefully having an audience of breeders learning from them at the same time.
Yeah, I talk about with some of these breeders within Welsh Springers, the fact that if we all did the same thing, we would have nowhere to go. We would have no diversity.
So, Meghen, when you look back, were there any pivotal experiences? Had one with the experiences you got in the van going to the shows, but any other experiences that you'd point to that significantly shifted or advanced your journey in the Welsh Springer Spaniel breed?
There's two big ones. Number one was when I was 13, I began working for professional dog handlers. I was an assistant. And while it doesn't seem to go hand in hand with breeding, it actually does. I discovered a whole community of people that were breeders. We had clients. Some of the breeders or handlers that I worked for were also breeders. And I was able to expand my network and have really good conversations with people that were just like me.
It's always so interesting on this show, talking to top breeders, just how many of them point out the value that they've gained from the perspectives outside their breed, from other great breeders. That just comes up time and time again. And I think it's something that probably not enough of us realize the value of and make a concerted effort to get outside of our breed.
I feel that is something that, well, I'm an educator, so let's just say that. But I feel that's something that we could all do better is be more inclusive with our seminars, and with sharing our time at shows. Back in the day, in the 80s and the early 90s, it was common for people to go to a dog show their own breed, and stay all day to watch every breed being shown. And you would sit with your friends and you would discuss it and you would pull out standards and learn. I think that's lacking today. I think a lot of people like to show and go, but I do think there's value, like you said, in comparing your own breed to these other breeds and to learning about them and then taking that knowledge and turning it back on your own breeding program.
I would agree. Not just the education value about, you've learned your breed once and then hopefully continuing every day, but that exercise of learning new breeds and being able to understand the verbiage that's in those standards and then see it in the flesh. But then also, as you sit ringside and proceed through the groups onto best in show, you're exposing yourself to truly the best in the sport. And great opportunity for you to kind of raise your own mental bar as far as what is possible for training, conditioning, presentation, grooming. All of those lessons are for all of us to take advantage of if we're wise enough to do it.
Oh, I completely agree. I think that if you don't take advantage of that, you're really doing a disservice to yourself and your breed. And so what I like to tell people is that you learn so much about your own breed by learning about other breeds. And so once I started learning about these other breeds, I could look at my own breed and go, "Oh, no, 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 we definitely don't want that," or, "Oh, yeah, we want that too." And so talking with those other breeders with other breeds and finding out their techniques for producing certain traits, I was able to kind of go, "Oh, okay, well, I definitely want to try that." Or, "No, if that's how you're getting that trait, I do not want that. So I'm going to steer clear of that method." So that was a biggie. And another one was when I began traveling internationally to visit kennels abroad. That was really an eye opener when I realized I am not only limited to what I have here in the US. I can go outside the country and there's whole bunches of dogs out there with things that I really want to bring in.
Fellow breeders, see what your breeding program has been missing with Easy Whelp modular whelping boxes. From the durable Easy Classic design to the spacious Easy Classic Tall, Easy Whelp sets a new standard for premium design and performance. Their innovative models are developed for simple setup and maximum safety, with features like integrated safety rails to protect your next generation. The smooth, hygienic surface allows for quick wipe downs to maintain a sanitary environment. The new windowed wall option provides the next level of safety, confidence, and convenience. No tools are required for assembly, which comes in handy if time is short in those critical moments. Elevate your breeding program today. Visit easywhelp.com. So, Meghen, if you would, take us through the transition from being the second generation breeder with wonderful mentoring parents through that journey to becoming your own breeder, your own person, the one making the decisions in your breeding program.
It was a very natural process, and I was supported very much by my family. But in, I'm going to say the mid 90s, late 90s, I began having my own ideas. It wasn't that I disagreed with what my family was doing with the breeding program, but it was like I wanted to try things that they weren't trying. And a lot of it included incorporating dogs from overseas. And so once I began traveling and I made friendships with people abroad, that I really started kind of making my own spot in the breed.
So, Meghen, after you had established kind of the clear vision for what you felt a correct Welsh Springer Spaniel should look like, what were the dogs or bloodlines that helped you progress towards that vision?
Well, to start with this answer, I really need to kind of describe the styles of Welsh Springer that I feel exist. And this is very, very mild. When we're talking about styles, we're not talking about the field English Springer, the bench English Springer, the UK English Springer, the Scandinavian, the American Springers. None of that. These are just very subtle differences that a real breeder within the breed would understand. So the dogs that I remember, my earliest memories with the breed were with what I consider are an old American style of Welsh Springer. These dogs had a little bit more ticking, were very functional. A lot of them had a bigger ear to them, but as as many qualities as they had, they struggled with temperament and health. When I was a girl, I vividly remember in Knoxville, Tennessee, I was probably 6 or 7, watching a Welsh Springer be shown and urinated all the way around the ring. And that really stuck with me, and I thought, I don't wanna have that. I wanna be able to take a dog in the ring and have it have the confidence that it can show and be happy, because if it can show and be happy, then it can go in the field and be happy. So that's where my brain went, even at that age, that it was unacceptable. And so, like I said, one of my kind of changing points was traveling, and when I was 13, I went over to Scandinavia and we visited the Don's Kennel and we visited the Benton Kennel and went to a number of shows over there. We went to the Mary One's Kennel, and we also went to Norway and visited a kennel there. And all of the dogs were confident, and all of the dogs had really nice health tests. We struggled with hits at that point. And so that trip combined with my early memories of seeing where the breed struggled really led me to start looking elsewhere to weave in dogs that would complement what we had, because we did have tremendous fronts at that time, which is kind of a shocking thing that a lot of people think, oh, we're all losing fronts, we're losing fronts. And I remember when a front was on every dog we had in our house. So I wanted to weave in those traits that they had overseas with what we had here. And so that's what really led me to start going a different direction and start considering different paths.
So were those dogs then that you acquired and imported, or were you getting frozen semen?
My mother was very interested in the dogs we saw as well. And so we imported a dog named Mary Wanzama Statesman. His call name was Alex from Sweden, and he was undocked. That was right when the docking ban took place over there. And we also imported a dog named Don's Still Waters Run Deep, whose call name was Calvin. And those 2 dogs were tremendously influential. Even today are making continuing to make their mark. They are seen in a large number of pedigrees in the US, and they began the breed's upward turn to better health and better temperament. And that was kind of the turning point for me and for, in my opinion, the breed to really start turning in the right direction. After that, we began looking at more dogs. What else can we get? What can we bring over? And then at that point, frozen semen was becoming more common, and there was more availability to it overseas. I will say today that some countries it's easier to get frozen semen from than others. Finland is somewhat easy. Sweden is not. And it's so funny because they're neighbors, but even today we struggle a little bit with that. Whereas in the US, it's just common. You just expect it to be available. So in the early 2000s, began kind of shopping for dogs that could improve the breed here, could improve my own breeding program, and we started importing semen.
So, Megan, as you're getting started bringing in these new dogs from overseas, integrating that into your own program, what were the specific breeding strategies that you applied as you're establishing this new foundation?
So health has always been very important to us. And when we started importing dogs, we were doing in large part for the health and the temperament. Those were the 2 big things we were trying to bring over. And so obviously in the first breedings, they were all outcrosses. And we try to get every puppy in every litter hip tested, regardless if they are a show puppy, a companion puppy, a performance puppy. We want that data. And so we learned of the 2 dogs that we brought over initially, Calvin, Don Stillwater's Run Deep, and Alex, Mary Wanzama Statesman, that Calvin produced much better hits and temperament than Alex did. Alex produced beautiful type, but he didn't give us as strong of a hip line as Alex did. And so what we started to do eventually was to few generations later, we would take my favorite type of breeding, grandmother, grandson, uncle, niece, those types of breedings. So we could double up on those traits that we were really looking to get. Now, since we have a small gene pool compared to some of the other breeds, we then really had to go out again. So we would double up once or twice on these dogs, and then we would go back out again. And so it was always a question of what am I looking for to go out with? And how am I going to do it? And where am I going to find this dog? Well, I would like to give credit to the people who wrote the Welsh Springer Standard, that the same one that we use today, because they foresaw the need to have undocked dogs added to the gene pool. And so we were the first spaniel breed that you were seeing undocked dogs.
Okay.
And it's because our standard says generally docked. And so those two dogs came over, and gosh, I showed them both. And one lived in Kansas with a breeder friend of ours and was co-owned. But I remember showing those two dogs, and every time the judge would come in, take a look, and go right to their standard, and come back, and I'd say generally docked. Yep, generally docked. They weren't really brought over to campaign, though. They were brought over for what they could offer to the breeders, I should say, over here.
You hear some breeders say that you can't line breed to two dogs at the same time. As you're integrating them into your breeding program, what was your strategy for bringing both of them in for the different attributes that they were able to contribute to your program?
Well, we certainly wanted to include both. I mean, this is a long time ago. This was the 90s. And one of my favorite breedings is we took the daughter of one and bred it to actually the other dog. And so we were able to include both. Actually, it had Alex, Calvin, and then our old Statesman, that old American style, in there as well. And those dogs did really well.
Did you find that the daughters of one of them went better to the other dog, or vice versa?
Well, not necessarily that, but we discovered that each dog had their certain strengths in production. We also imported a littermate to Calvin, and she went out to Arizona to a breeder, but unfortunately she produced epilepsy. And so we were a little worried at that time because of having a littermate, but he had already had so many litters at that point and no problems, that we were in a roundabout way discovered he was clear. We discovered that one dog produced better fronts, and one dog produced better rears, and one dog produced better movement, and one dog produced better coat. So with bringing those two dogs in, it was really interesting because they came from two different pedigrees. They were two entirely different dogs, and they offered entirely different things. And so it was really, like I said, it was a real turning point for me. And I feel for the breed as well, because if you look at dogs that are best in show winners and national winners, I'm going to say the vast majority of dogs today go back and you'll find one of those two dogs in their pedigree.
So, Meghen, how much does pedigree factor into your breeding decisions, or are you looking more at type?
I look more at the actual dog, what I see. And like I said, we have kind of a range of styles within our type, within correct type. I love a good line breeding, and I also love doing a good outcross. So it's kind of like where it fits at the moment and what bitches I have. A lot of it depends on if it's a maiden bitch. A maiden bitch, I really like to do a natural breeding, a live cover, and that way, it's kind of safe, and it sets her mentally and physically, I think, up for success to have a litter. After that, I do look at pedigree, but I mean, I'm probably not, I don't know. I do my own thing. And so I don't really look at coefficients, inbreeding coefficients at all. I look at health tests and the physical dog. If I feel like I'm getting a little tight with a line breeding, then I definitely do want to go out. And I have dogs in the freezer that I can go out to if I need to. But I mean, I don't look at entirely one or entirely the other. And that's where I feel that breeding is more, it's not just a scientific. There's a little bit of an art to it. And so I kind of toe the line on both areas. I do one thing and I do the other, but I'm not entirely a pedigree person or entirely a type person. I think you can do it with both.
Meghen, if you would, describe for our audience what a Renascent Welsh Springer Spaniel looks like.
Athletic, rectangular from angulation. I never want my dogs to be leggy, and I never want them to lack angulation in front or rear. That's pretty much it. I want movement, but that movement comes with angulation. It comes from the proportions and the athleticism. So it just all kind of ties in together. But those are the big things that I look for.
And how would you say a Renascent Welsh might contrast with what the general breed type is in the ring today?
I would say that I generally have a lower station dog than some of the other dogs you'll see. Those proportions are very important to me. I feel that my dogs also tend to be very enthusiastic in the ring, and that goes back to that early childhood memory of seeing the dog that was so unhappy and miserable in the ring. I thought I just never want my dogs to be that way. And so I have bred for that confidence, not just the bidability, but for the confidence to be able to do any job that's put in front of them.
My fellow breeders, I'm excited to announce the Better Breeders Certification Program. This program recognizes purebred dog breeders dedicated to the preservation and advancement of their breed. The Better Breeder Institute certifies purposeful conservation breeders who produce healthy, beautiful, and predictable puppies, and who raise the bar with their ethics and breeding practices. Conservation dog breeders have long struggled to differentiate themselves from the backyard, for-profit, and commercial breeders in the minds of the general public. This is the only breeder certification program developed to help purebred puppy shoppers identify better breeders. This program directly supports breed health research and promotes the breeding of dogs that fulfill their breed standard. This is the first breeder merit program that truly supports efforts to breed a better dog. Learn more at betterbreeder.org. So, Meghen, I'd like to learn a little bit more about the most notable dogs that you've had and what made them special. Who are the dogs that made your kennel?
So the first dog I would like to discuss is Jason. His registered name is Welford's Jesmond Waterfall. He was bred by Welford Kennel in Sweden. Karsten Sorensen and Urban Peterson. I am so grateful to those two for allowing Jason to come over here. What Jason's big accomplishment is he's kind of done it all. He won the club show in Sweden. He won Best in Show at the club show. And then he came over to the US. His first show or second show, he was Best of Winners at the National. And then he won Best of Breed at Westminster. And I took him to Crufts a month later, and he won Best of Breed at Crufts. And the Welsh Springer entry at Crufts is pretty impressive. 150, maybe 175 Welsh Springers there. And it was a breeder judge who I had met once or twice. I didn't really know her. And so he went Best of Breed there as well. And he's produced exceptionally well for me. He went on to become my son's bed dog, and my entire family's heart dog. He was not just wonderful with his show wins, but he really came over and was the sire of this year's national specialty winner, who also is a Best in Show winner. And I have had grand puppies and great grand puppies of his already. And they are all very successful. They have those things that he himself had that was able to produce. He had lovely bone and angulation, a fantastic temperament. And so he was very important to me. One thing I'd like to say is that I am not a breeder that gets hung up with my own kennel. If I see quality somewhere, I want to be part of it. It doesn't matter if it's a Renascent dog. It doesn't matter if it's a Statesman dog. If it's good, we are all in this. Breeders, we are in this together to produce great dogs, to produce dogs that not only do well in the show ring, but go on and be fabulous pets. And so A lot of dogs that I'll talk about are not dogs that I have myself have bred, but dogs that I've seen and been drawn to and wanted to bring them in and be part of my breeding program. So Jason was certainly one of those. He was campaigned for 1 year here. So those few judges who were able to see him, he wasn't all over the magazines, but he was very influential here for breeders. Another dog is, and this is a bitch that I acquired. She was bred in the UK by Thelma Ritchie of Slatestone's Welsh Springers. And this bitch has really helped me to create my own breeding program. This is the bitch that's really helped me to kind of branch out. Her name was Slapestone Seabreeze. I showed her a handful of times. And one time I showed her as a veteran and she went best in show. From the veteran class, it was, I think, the only time I had shown her as a special up until that point. But that bitch had the style that I really liked. She had those traits about her that I really loved. She had the reach and drive. She held her outline on the move. She was a Welsh Springer from every single angle you looked at her. Her sire was a dog named Ferndale Maverick, who had actually won the gun dog group at Crufts. And so she was getting her quality from both sides. Her mother was a beautiful bitch. And I cannot tell you how lucky I was to get that bitch. She produced phenomenally well. Her only fault with production is that I never got a bitch from her. She produced only males in every single one of her litters. And sometimes as a breeder, I think we all kind of like bang our heads when things don't go as we think they should. But I do think there's a higher power at work sometimes. And God seemed to know what he was doing because with all those males he gave us, we had so many options for stud dogs during that time. Dogs that we could go to because I tried to breed her to different dogs, different stud dogs, every litter. So to give us more options for the next generations. She comes down and she's in so many pedigrees of successful dogs now too. That I just feel very, very appreciative that she was allowed to be part of my kennel.
What a problem to have, all those boys.
I know, right? I know. And I do think that's a very important thing as a breeder. And this is something that I don't think is often discussed is that you need to connect with other breeders. And it doesn't have to be internationally, but you have to connect with other breeders and work together. I like to say birds of a feather. We're drawn to people that have similar opinions, similar views as we do. And so I have a group of people even today. And if I'm considering something, hey, what do you think? What do you guys think? What would you do? I think even with a lifetime of experience, it is good to have a group of people to rely on to bring new ideas and new viewpoints to your breeding program. And it's also important to accept those viewpoints without being offended if it's not perhaps what you were originally thinking. And so I do have that group of breeders. And I have a group of breeders that I can trust, that I can send dogs to and know they're going to be well taken care of and that they're going to be used in a breeding program carefully. And so I think those are things that aren't really discussed a lot, that newer breeders need to be aware of. And there's nobody stopping you from going and introducing yourself to somebody and saying, hey, I think your dogs are beautiful. Let's talk, because most breeders are going to be willing to talk with you. All right. So the next dog, her call name is Berry. Her registered name is Renascent Berry at Slatestones. She's owned by two lovely ladies in the UK. And she has been the first American bred Welsh Springer to win the breed at Crufts, which I'm very proud of. And her sister Renascent because of a dream. Was just best of opposite this year at the national, her first time in the ring as a special. And so those two dogs, I'm very proud of. I had a small litter, but all dogs in that litter were really, I was really proud to produce. And what's interesting about that litter is that their mother is an import from Wales. So one thing about our breed that I really feel gives us a step above some of the other breeds is that we do have that international community to work with, and the style is pretty much the same. Welsh Springer can be successful in the US, can go to Australia, can go to Scandinavia, can go to the UK and be successful. So we're not separated by differences in that respect. Like I said, we do have like things where we really excel in each area of the world, but it really gives us some good breeding opportunities as far as that goes. So having this bitch brought over, Barry and Panther's mother, and then having her produce so well has been fantastic. I'd like to discuss a dog named Maddox, Tristan Statesman Cactus Blue, who I co-bred with Sandy Holmes in Michigan. He was very successful in the show ring. He, I think, won 5, maybe 6 best in shows, multiple reserve best in shows, 3 national specialties, American Spaniel Club, Westminster, pretty much anything there was to win, he won it. And he was a fun dog, and that's what I really love about him is that he enjoyed being at the shows, and he knew what a dog show was, and he knew to go in the ring and have a great time. You didn't have to encourage him. He just loved it. He was great for the breed. He was a true ambassador. He had a fantastic temperament. You could hand him to anybody. He was around my son when my son was a toddler, and just had a lot of things that I appreciated getting from. He went back to those dogs I was talking about, Alex and Calvin, had a lot of those qualities that were compounded into one dog. Some of the other dogs that I feel have been very influential for me. There was a dog that was imported from Finland named Ruin Madrigal. His call name was Rocky, and he was owned by a breeder in Arizona. He produced wonderfully healthy dogs. His kennel has been known to produce fantastic hips, and so he brought that hip strength over here, and we were able to incorporate that into our breeding program, which really turned out well. Another dog from that kennel, she was actually born over here, but her name was Ruin Heaven's Alliance, and again, she brought the health as well, along with a lot of type that we were kind of lacking. She brought in spring of rib, and I really like my brood bitches to be somewhat substantial. I have found that the best breedings are breeding a really substantial bitch to more dog that maybe some would say is a little bit elegant, but I find those pairings to be the best for getting this spot on um, type that we're looking for. Those 2 dogs were really, important. If you look way back in the breeding program, we had Statesman's Arista. She was the top bitch for a while, and she was a huge bitch. She was a really tall bitch, but what she had was that front that we were talking about, and it came down all the generations. There was a very influential dog named Northie Watney's Red, who was an import from the UK, from Christine McDonald of Northie Welsh Springers, and he produced movement. Oh my gosh, he produced the movement, and I really do think that is a large part of why we have the movement today. He was a very influential dog in the 80s, and Statesman's Arista was a daughter of him. And so those dogs are almost all of those dogs are in the pedigrees that I have today in most of my dogs in my kennel, and a lot of dogs that are shown here.
So many people look at successful breeding programs like yours and they only see the success. What they don't get to see is the rest of the story. What were the biggest challenges or setbacks that you faced in your breeding program, and how did you overcome them?
Well, there's multiple things. Anytime you breed, you're going to have things that don't go the way you want. It can be a difficult litter. I recently had a litter of puppies that I really had to nurse along for a long time, and they didn't make it. I have dog plans in my head that I think are going to turn out beautifully, and the puppies are a disappointment, and it happens. I think you have to really kind of grow a thick skin and not become so emotionally attached to the success of your puppies. I think when you are very emotional about the success of your puppies, it can really lead to some bad times. For me, honestly, the biggest challenge is juggling a breeding program with my life. I have a 13-year-old son. I do everything myself. I clean the kennel myself. I do the breedings. I whelp the puppies. I take care of the puppies and place the puppies while working full time and then also judging. And so it is a huge challenge to do all those things. It's a lot of sleepless nights. It's a lot of feeling exhausted, but I love it. I do retire in 3.5 years, and I will be excited about that because I'll be able to truly focus entirely on breeding, my breeding program. But those are the big challenges. I think that another challenge is being tempted. So many times I've seen dogs that are just absolutely stunning and thought, "Oh gosh, I would like to have that dog. I'd like to breed to that dog, get a puppy of that dog." And I look at the health on it and I thought, "No." I mean, it happens so often, that that it's a little bit disappointing when you get so excited about a dog and then you realize you can't really touch it. That's a challenge. And I think it's a challenge that newer breeders may experience and be, you know, fall victim to using a dog and then finding the problems in with the puppies. In the 80s, we produced a litter of seizuring dogs, and I remember my mom on the phone with owners in tears. I mean, those are things that are real. And I think that a lot of people, don't when they're starting a breeding program, they're not necessarily thinking of, I need to produce a dog that's gonna be a great pet. In their brains, I think they wanna produce a dog that's gonna be a big winner. And I think to do it well, you have to do both things.
Are you preparing for your first litter? Or do you want to outfit your whelping room in style? If so, check out Whelping Bundles from Easy Whelp. The Easy Whelp Starter Pack includes a modular whelping box, heating combo, and reusable pad. Step up to the Essentials, Pro, or Elite bundles to add a variety of premium whelping necessities and accessories. Ensure your whelping operation is world-class with Easy Whelp bundles. Visit easywhelp.com today. Meghen, current breeders are having to deal with several new challenges, including there just being fewer breeders, contracting gene pools, and the loss of major bloodlines in many breeds. Do you have any ideas or theories for how today's breeder can succeed in light of these current challenges?
Yes, absolutely. Well, first, some of that is gonna fall on the parent clubs. I feel that the parent clubs and the longtime breeders need to make themselves approachable, and need to be willing to share their knowledge. We are all in this together. I say all the time, the competition is in the show ring. It is not in the whelping box. We all want to be in the same place. We all need to move the breed forward, and this is every single breed. So I think some of that needs to fall on us. The other thing is that, and this, I mean, me being an educator, I can't help but see the lost opportunities that exist within every child in my building. I keep an AKC poster up in my library, and that is the most popular spot in the whole library. we do have young people that would love to become involved with purebred dogs. And so I think we need to work together to find a way to expose people, the young people, to the joys of breeding and the joys of purebred dogs. I do think that AKC has some good ideas. I do love that they have allowed junior showmanship to be open to juniors who don't own a dog. I think we need to do as much of that as possible where we bring people in because I do feel, I personally have a fear. Where's my breeding program going to go when I get too old? That is something that I don't think a lot of people consider, but I do. I'm like, "Oh, who's gonna know what to do with this semen? Who's gonna know that this dog produces great rears, and this dog produces great hips, and this dog produces great temperament?" I feel that there needs to be some type of mentoring program, offered within parent clubs. I feel a lot of this needs to fall on the parent clubs and the long-time breeders, because not all long-time breeders are members of parent clubs. That's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah, very, very breed dependent in that case.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that we need to um, come up with ideas together to encourage younger breeders, newer breeders, and then also to offer as much education as we can. And then get the kids when they're young. I can't tell you how many kids I had a kid, and this is you can cut this out if you want. I had a kid at my son's skeet shooting tournament a week ago. He's never been to a dog show in his life. Never been to a dog show in his life. I had my puppies there. I'm socializing. He said, "Hey, I want to get some red bone coonhounds." I said, "Oh, how old are you?" He said, 11. I said, "I bet you're reading Where the Red Front Grows." And he said, "How did you know?" I said, "Because I read it to my fourth grade kids too." But those kids are so passionate at that age. If we only had a way to expose them to actual breeders, I think the entries would go up, number of breeders would go up, everything would go up. So they're out there. We just have to figure out a way to bring them in.
What a, fertile soil you have in a young child to expose them to the beauty, the history of these breeds when their minds are expanding and they're open to so many new things. You might be onto something there.
I think there's like you said, fertile soil out there. We could go out there and pull some great breeders out of the children that exist that have interest. We just have to figure out how. That's the biggest thing.
So, Meghen, why can't the AKC send their beautiful breed poster to every elementary school in this country?
I think that would be the best idea. The first step in exposing these children to the wonderful breeds that exist. And I ought to send pictures of the hordes of students that stand around the poster and point, "I want to have one of those. I want to have one of those. I want to have one of those." But as a librarian, a school librarian, I also would like to see the parent clubs possibly consider donating books, breed books to the libraries. These children check out books. The circulation numbers on my dog breed books are incredible. So I've often thought about that, approaching the parent clubs and saying, "Hey, why don't you contribute to the schools through books? Find a book that's appropriate level for that school and donate a book. Donate it in memory of a member, donate it in memory of a dog."
I can vouch for that. My path as a dog breeder began reading the Albert Payson Terhune novels as an 8 and 9 year old child. That set me on my path to be a collie breeder.
There we go. Yay. So as a librarian, it makes me happy. As a breeder, it makes me happy. I have also thought that, and continuing on with education and taking advantage of the eagerness that those children have, is that I feel it would have been beneficial to the sport and to breeders to have a requirement for the parent clubs to do public education, but it doesn't have to be at Meet the Breeds. It could be going into a school We'll talk about research skills on the Saluki. Here's a Saluki. Isn't this a great breed? Promote your breeds. If you promote them, these children would just love to learn about them. They love dogs. Most kids just love dogs. And I will say, here's another side thing, is that every day I take a dog to school. I have a therapy dog, not a Welsh Springer. He's an honorary Welsh Springer. He's a pug. And he comes to school every day with me. And my children all know everything there is to know about pugs because those books get checked out constantly and they are exposed to a purebred dog. And of course, all of them. When I grow up, I want a pug. So if we take our dogs into their spaces, offer the chance to these schools, I mean, we'll probably get a number of children who are interested in continuing on with the sport and possibly breeding.
Meghen, one of the primary focuses here at the Better Breeder Institute is promoting the belief that we must begin treating our fellow breeders as partners and collaborators rather than competitors and rivals. You just mentioned something absolutely terrific about the competition happens inside the ring, not outside. I know you have invested an incredible amount of time and energy into your fellow breeders. Can you speak to the importance of that?
You're not going to get anywhere if you try to do everything yourself. If you don't work together, you're going to find yourself in a position with a breeding program where you have no options. I mean, it's not only beneficial to you, but it's beneficial to the breed. And I really do think that working together is truly the solution to a number of problems that breeders will find. Something else, and I know that I have traveled quite a bit. However, a common thing I see with breeders is that they breed in my breed is that they breed for convenience. They breed to a dog because they can drive to it or because it's local or a friend has it. And I would really like for breeders to get away from that mentality. I don't know if they are afraid to ask other breeders, but my motto has always been you can ask and they can always say no. And if they say no, you're out nothing. But if they say yes, look at all the opportunities that could exist. I really hope that more breeders are willing to take a chance and introduce themselves to other breeders. I really do think most breeders are very approachable. And I've learned this through the years of judges education seminars I've been to, learning about other breeds. People are typically honored to share their stories, to share their knowledge, that you would think so highly of them that you would ask questions. People are really generally happy to help you on your journey.
Meghen, how has your vision or your goals for your breeding program changed or evolved over the years?
Well, it changes by what I need at the moment. I mean, that's the biggest thing is that you may be very strong in a certain trait for this 5 to 7 year period, but you may end up using a dog that changes where you're at. And so you have to shift constantly to address those changes.
What does success in your breeding program mean to you today compared to when you began?
When I began, it was ribbons and trophies. And today it is breeding dogs that I'm really proud of. It doesn't matter if they see the inside of a show ring or not. It's breeding healthy, happy, structurally sound dogs that can excel in any area.
How much value do you place on judges' decisions in the ring today compared to in the past?
Unfortunately, very little. I feel that there are very few judges who truly grasp my breed, and those judges I will always give an entry to if I have anything worthy of their opinion. But I don't want to say that it is a lack of knowledge because I truly feel that the judging pool we have, especially people in the last 10 to 20 years, they really are exceptional. But I feel I'm the best judge of my dogs. I know what I want, and I know whether or not I have succeeded with every litter.
At this point in your breeding career, what do you view as the most significant challenge in your breed?
I mean, a gene pool that is small, and having fewer breeders, that's another thing. A lot of our longtime breeders are gone. They've stopped breeding. They're out of the breed. And believe it or not, I'm one of the old timers now. And so just not having the number of breeders, not having the number of dogs, and having a smaller and smaller gene pool.
On the flip side, what has you optimistic about the future of your breed?
What has me optimistic is that the few breeders we have are very enthusiastic and they are willing to try new things. They are excited. And so I think that enthusiasm is going to really move us forward.
What do you believe your fellow breeders should be most focused on today?
The complete package. I feel that our breeders need to keep in mind health, temperament, and structure. Fortunately, in my breed, we still have the instinct, the working ability. You don't really have to worry about that. It's still in them. But focusing on the whole package.
If there was one current day master breeder that you'd like to see featured on this show, who would it be and why?
Marjorie Good. She's just phenomenal. I have learned so much from her in my short conversations with her that I would like to hear more.
Thinking back over your journey in Welsh Springer Spaniels, what do you feel is the most notable accomplishment of your breeding program, or what are you most proud of?
I'm most proud of continually improving. That the dogs of the 90s that I thought were tremendous examples are dogs that would be finishable today. Constantly improving, constantly improving. And I'm glad I've been able to do that through the help of others and through luck and through hard work.
Is there a breeder you'd like to see featured on the Better Breeder Chronicles? Then go to betterbreeder.org/nominate to let us know. We are looking for master breeders, whether they are highly acclaimed or they work quietly in anonymity to move their breed forward. Better Breeder Chronicles puts those individuals on their rightful pedestal and shares their story with the purebred dog world. Nominate your most respected breeder today. Go to betterbreeder.org/nominate. To that aspiring breeder who's listening to the Renascent story today, if there was one thing you'd hope they take away from your story that could help them in their own journey, what would it be?
I actually have two things, and I say this often to new breeders and Welsh Springers. Number one, start with the very best bitch that you can start with. Avoid all of the issues that come with a mediocre bitch. Wait. If you have to wait 2 years to get her, wait 2 years to get her. Start with the very, very best bitch that you can start with. Number two, when you are breeding and you have your litter, remove all emotion from your decision making. Never keep a puppy because he was the first one to bark, or he's the cutest one, or he's got the cutest temperament. Pick the best puppy. Keep the best. If you have a dog in your kennel that you feel is mediocre, make space for a better dog.
And finally, after your breeding days are done, how do you want breed history to remember your breeding program?
I just want them to remember quality. I hope that people look back and think, oh, she had nice dogs. That's it.
Meghen, if breeders want to learn more about your dogs and your breeding program, do you have a website or where can they go?
They can look at Renascent Welsh Springer Spaniels on the website or on Facebook.
Meghen, this conversation has been spectacular. Thank you for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you for including me. It's been fun.
That's it for this chapter of the Better Breeder Chronicles. We hope you found the Renascent story with Meghen Riese-Bassel captivating, and that it will inspire you to pursue your highest goals in your breeding program. Make sure to click subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. At the Better Breeder Institute, we encourage all conservation dog breeders to embrace your fellow breeders as partners and collaborators rather than competitors and rivals. With the unprecedented challenges we all face today, successful breeding programs can no longer operate on an island. Our purebred dog breeder community must come together with everyone pulling in the same direction. This is crucial if we're going to successfully preserve and advance our beloved breeds. I'm Matt Stelter, closing the book for today. Best wishes to you and your breeding program from all of us at the Better Breeder Institute. We'll see you in the next chapter. Take care.